How's it going, world? Happy New Year. Welcome to a new episode of We on the Last with Tyson Paul, the show where we sit here and talk to some of your favorite comics and just talk basically comedy from every aspect, from just the start of the joke to the end where we're glad we're off stage and it was a success. All right. So tonight we have a very special guest for us tonight, man. He's a guy that's actually, even during the pandemic, has been steadily working constantly, and he's actually been doing this for a very long time and been in the spotlight for a very long time. He's been on HBO Latino, he's been on Netflix, he's been on Lady Dynamite, he's been on Shameless, he's been on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he's currently on a show called Gentefied, and he has two projects right now on HBO Max that you should check out: Mass Mahor and Zoo Animals, a short film that he's actually won awards at a few comedy festivals and stuff. So let's give it up for our guest tonight, Mr. Francisco Ramos.
Okay,
What's
man,
going on,
awesome.
Francisco?
That was a great intro. You should tell that to my mom.
I try, yeah. No, oh yeah, you got one of those moms too that still thinks
that it doesn't matter what you do. Yeah,
it doesn't matter. She's like, you're still not doing shit with your life. My mom still is my mom.
But J-Lo makes more money than you. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, nothing impresses her. Nothing will ever impress her.
Nothing will. Yeah. They will never let you know. They will never let you know.
Yeah, man. No, so let's just get started, man. Let's just talk about some of your early beginnings. But let's start it off with, what is some of your earliest moments in comedy, as a genre? What do you remember first? What are your first early moments of comedy, just in general?
Yeah. Well, it was weird because, first of all, I was born in Venezuela, so the comedy over there, when it all started from my dad. My dad was also a very funny guy who loved to make jokes, you know. So I remember growing up with that, and then in Venezuela there was actually a show, like an SNL type show that was very famous over there. So I remember watching it and being a fan of it. And then when we moved to the US, that's when I started getting into I didn't know what stand-up was, slowly, I started with watching Seinfeld. I really I'm a huge fan of Seinfeld, which I didn't even know that he was stand-up. I just loved the show. And then slowly started, the more I started doing research and stuff like that, then I realized, oh, stand-up, what is this? And that's when I started seeing documentary that he did, Comedians, which was my first kind of view to what the world of stand-up was. Then obviously I watched all the big ones like Chappelle, and then that's what got me to slowly going into this whole thing of what comedy was, stand-up, and improv too, because I remember watching Whose Line Is It Anyways, was very famous too, and I really liked it. So just anything that was created, I was a big fan of it growing up.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting, man. First, and did you start watching Seinfeld in Venezuela, or you had you discovered it in the States?
Yeah, no, that was here. That was in, during high school, when it was still, it was still, or the seat or something. And I started watching it. We would watch it as a family. It was actually pretty cool because I remember that showed me. That's one of my, now going back and thinking, I'm that's one of my first things of why I like doing stand up, of that everybody can get, because that was a show that me and my whole family could watch it together and we'd all laugh. My dad, my mom, and we watched. I mean, besides that, everybody watched whatever, separately. But that was the only one that we could watch together and all laugh, and that was really enjoyable to be to be able to share that.
Okay, yeah, that's great. It's definitely because it goes into your family time, because you're a big family guy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like Family Guy too, but also I'm a family guy.
No, I mean you're a big family person, not family guy.
Yeah. No, I also love Family Guy. So yeah. No. Yeah, no, I am. I'm a very big family person. I mean, I grew up with a big family, just huge family, just going back to, during the holidays, everybody went to my grandma's beach house, and I just grew up with a lot of cousins, and so I do like family, and then I do like having a lot of people in the house or like get together and stuff like that. So definitely that was one of my things growing up for sure.
Okay. So, I mean, you guys were, living in Venezuela, but you moved to the States as a teenager. Like, what was the reason you guys moved to the States? And, like, how was that transition from moving from Venezuela to, like, the United States? Was it a smooth transition? Was it, like, just...
Yeah, well, we were escaping the narcos. No, I'm kidding. No, no. No, it was no, it was. I mean, it was. My mom got a job at the Pan American Health Organization, which was in Washington D.C., which is part of the World Health Organization. And that was the reason that why we moved. She got the job, and me and my sister and my dad, and my mom, we moved, and yeah, I mean, when I moved, I was 12, 13, and that was like one of the worst times to move I mean, just even changing schools in it's hard for a kid, but then you have to change cultures and language,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that was really 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 hard for me to in the beginning to adjust, because obviously I didn't know English at all, and my mom being typical Latina Catholic mom. She put me in a little private school that was Catholic, but it was a very small school. It had like one grade uh, per, just one class per grade. So there was only one teacher per the classroom, and then which I realized later, it didn't have any ESL or somebody that could teach me, or people that were in the same boat. So it was just me literally by myself in the classroom trying to learn English, just listening. So it was like a monkey. It was like an experiment. Like they sent me to the moon, and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
learn. Which was, it did teach me. I mean, I did learn quickly. Like in 4 or 5 months, I remember, like after I came back on seventh grade, I was like, it was crazy. I was like, oh, I understand everything and I can communicate. So I was like, oh, it was quick. But then I realized I had an accent, and then I was like, oh man, I'm not. I thought I was in, and now I'm like, but I'm not fully in. And then I was like, oh man, but it was interesting. It was interesting growing up and not. I mean, it's hard, just not knowing any language and not knowing any culture. One time, I actually tried out for the basketball team because my mom bought me shorts, thinking they were shorts, and then I actually was wearing boxers. So like, I walk into the, I literally walk, yeah, and I'm not kidding at all. This is like completely true.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
yeah,
It's like, man, he got too many balls on the court.
yeah. Yeah.
He done came with too many balls on the court. We
Two
can't
of
play with him.
I mean, what was crazy was like I had no idea, and like imagine, and I was like guarding people. Nobody wanted to guard me, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
It's like, no, nobody wants to guard the kid in his underwear. What the hell?
Yeah, no. You were the Venezuelan John Stockton at the time.
Yes,
That's what you were. You
that's
were.
literally what I was. Yes,
Yeah,
just
no,
and
but
that's what I thought, because boxers were not a thing in Venezuela. So my mom saw those things, saw the boxers, and thinking they were, yeah, John Stockton shorts.
yeah, that's one way to look at your transition as a smooth transition.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, so like with your family and your dad being like the comical one, and then that kind of rubbed off on you. So, do you think, in a way, like, and you didn't probably know this at the time, do you think that comedy kind of helped you like make the transition to like when you were at school?
Yeah, for sure. Now, just going back and remember, that was my tool to get in with people. Like, because the good thing is that comedy, it is universal, and you can even make. I remember just making people laugh or just trying to be funny without the small, the little English that I had,
Yeah.
and then yeah, and that was my thing. That's always been my mo kind of thing. Like that was my thing to for everybody. Just even in high school, when I got into high school, just that's how I got along with everybody, because I was just funny to everybody, and just so yeah, that's always been my tool to, without even knowing that was my like I could do that as a career. That was just a
Yeah.
thing of like that was my, and yeah, and I think it had to do with like my and just my personality, like just trying to make people laugh.
Yeah, and then coming from a big family, it's like hard to stand out. So you gotta use your traits to like stand out.
Yeah.
So like, and then like, cause me coming, I don't like, we're not a big family, but I mean, I have a twin, and it's hard when you have a twin. It's very hard to develop your own
Differentiate.
individual. Yeah, it's hard to develop your own individuality, or
Yeah.
and so like the cool thing about him was he was like mostly serious all the time, and I was a playful one. So I kind of used that to my advantage, like growing up, where it was just like, okay, like if I want to separate myself, or like don't want to have people asking if I'm the twin or the other twin, like you gotta like do things to kind of set yourself apart from other people. And I think that's why, that's another reason why I ended up doing stand up, because it was just like, all right, well, this is more of a way to like kind of separate myself from just being just the other twin, because my twin was he was way more popular than what I was, especially with the girls. He still is. It still is, and everything. But yeah, no. So I understand totally about how transition and what it takes.
Yeah.
Because I mean, now you probably even don't even think about it. You're probably more of a active comedian on stage now, because you went and wore boxers to a basketball tryout.
Yeah, but what's funny though is like growing up, I was very introverted, so I was funny, but the guy that's like, if it's in a big group, like if you're next to me, I would tell you the joke and make you laugh, but I would not. I'm not gonna say it all out loud
Oh
unless it's like,
yeah.
So I was never the guy of like that goes into the that wants to be loud. That's never been my personality. So it's actually very funny because like everybody was very surprised that I got that when I started doing stand up and acting and all that stuff, because I was very introverted, and I was a guy who didn't, even when I was little. I remember my sister would do this like plays or something for the family, and like I remember crying because I didn't want to do them. But now I really realize that it's not because I didn't want to do them; it's because I wanted to do them good. And I
Yeah.
was just like, and I'm like, I don't know, I did like to do it. It's just I just wasn't good about doing it. But yeah.
He said, I didn't get my confidence yet. I
Yeah.
wasn't
Plus
like,
I wasn't
yeah.
wearing my boxers too.
Yeah,
So.
oh yeah. You didn't have your special boxers on, so you couldn't have. It's kind of like in Space Jam. Like Jordan had to go home and get his
That's
special
right.
shoes, his
North
boxers.
Carolina stuff.
Yes, he had to
Star
get. So
Heels.
that's what you needed. That's just what you
Yeah.
needed and stuff. Okay. Well, I mean, because everybody has a start when it comes to stand up, and I mean, everybody like we all want to do it, but like it takes that courage. And so when did you like finally have the courage to be like, all right, like this is what I want to do. I want to do stand up comedy. And what was that first like experience like doing stand up? Like basically like that first show, because like we all as comedians, we all remember we always remember our first show and how like it was. We'll never forget that experience. So what was that like for you?
Yeah. Well, I had two transitions in way because I started actually doing my first thing run with comedy was just actually doing improv, like so in DC. So basically it all started because I graduated actually from finance and international business from University of Maryland, and I thought that's what I was going to do, and my first thing, like after I grad my last semester, I took a class which is what I thought I was going to get into. And that was the first time that it really like gave me like a slap in the face of going like, ooh, I don't like this. Like, this is weird. But then I started working after I graduated, and I'm like, oh no, this is what I'm supposed to do. And obviously that wasn't the case. And I always say like I had like a quarter life crisis. I was working, everything was the same. Like everybody was doing the same routine. I knew what was gonna happen in my life if I would stick to that course. I was like, oh, I was gonna get, work and then do an MBA and then get married and then get divorced and then. So I was like, nah, 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 nah. And then that's when I actually went to like self therapy on Barnes and Nobles, and I started reading books like self help books on how to find out find out what was my passion, because I was like, there's got to be something that I do want to do. And then I read the book The Alchemist too, which I recommend to everybody to read, and talks about science and stuff like that. And that's when I started noticing. I was like, oh man, I do like comedy, and this is all this, and that's when I first started to. I didn't tell anybody, and I took a class, an improv class at the DC Improv, and told him, just went by myself and didn't tell anybody. And my first time doing that, that's when I first realized. I was like, oh, okay, this is different from everything else I've done in my life. Because I wanted to do it after the first class. I wasn't bored. I wasn't like, oh, I'm done, you
Yeah.
know. And I remember too that I was good. Like I was better than the average person. Like from everybody that was in that class, I remember I was like, I'm one of the best. And that was always I always play sports, and I can play like all sports, but I'm never like excellent on one of them. But for this thing, it was so different. I was like, oh, I am like one of the best ones in the and that's when I started doing it. And then I remember I did my first improv show, and it was good. Like I felt good on the stage. I was like, oh, I like being on stage. And then when I moved to LA, that's when you know, I uh, I moved to LA to do improv. That didn't work out. That's when I started doing stand up. And then doing my first show too. I remember just doing open mics and stuff like that. But when I did my first show I remember at the Ice House in Pasadena,
Okay.
one of those like shows that if you win you get a prize or something like that. I don't remember what it was, you know. And then, but I remember I did really good for what for at that point, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is good. This is like okay. I know I had that quality or that trait that I was like, okay, I'm good at this. Then and then I just that kind of just all right. Now I just have to keep working. I'm working on it. Yeah.
You were like I can't figure it out quite yet, but I know there's something there. It's like basically
Yes.
like you get a lump of clay and you're molding it together and you're like halfway done with it. It doesn't look good right now, but I can tell this is gonna be something and stuff. So
Yes, and you can tell that you're like I could, it's like one of those things that you could tell. It's like I'm good at this. Like I love to sing, but I suck at singing. You know what I mean? Like I was like, it doesn't matter how good I like it. I know I'm not good, and even it's not talent. It's not naturally, but I know that I am naturally talented in being funny.
yeah.
And being and having that comedy gene. So I was like, yeah. So that's basically how it all started.
Well, I mean, go back to the improv part, and like when you got to LA and improv didn't really work, like,
Hmm.
in LA, like improv and stand up comedy like kind of go hand in hand. Like somebody could do an improv show and then like turn around like 20 minutes later and go do stand up. Like,
Hmm.
so how did the improv not really translate to you being successful when you got to LA, but it led you to stand up comedy?
Yeah. So no. So yeah. So I moved to LA to do improv. I was a very big fan of SNL. I want to be on SNL and stuff like that. And I remember looking at online like the history of people that went in there, and then Groundlings was one of the schools that a lot of SNL alums have come from. So and when I moved to LA, I was like, oh yeah, I want to be in the Groundlings. So I got into the Groundlings. Like you get in, and then I did the first course and I did the second course. But those, I don't know if you know about the how the Groundlings is a
Yeah.
very
Yeah, no,
tight.
I
Yeah.
actually I went to support a friend one time. He was like doing his audition, or
Yeah.
I guess it's like the thing that they do like to try and entice people to come and join their
Uh-huh.
school.
Yeah.
So we had to do like an improv thing, and it was okay. Like I mean, he went on to join the school, but I was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, like let's just hurry up and get this done so I can go. Like, but no, I
Yeah.
respect it. I respect Groundlings. It's like a lot of people have come out of there, so like it's
Yeah.
very worth it.
No, I liked that, but the thing what happened was is like what well one reason I was like I was very green, and I did realize later on that you do needed some acting background for that. Like I mean like I didn't have that at all. I didn't had any acting at all. So like that really like I didn't have that, so that kind of stopped me from advancing. But also I realized too that I was like, oh, they you could tell which ones the ones that they like. It was like a very pick and like who they wanted to pass or who they wanted to pass. And it was very expensive too. So I was like, I can't keep taking
Yeah,
classes and
yeah.
not getting passed and like just being in this like hamster wheel. Uh, And that's when I started going into stand up, like open mics, because another thing too, the big thing was actually because I started working with other improv people outside of the class, but I
Yeah.
never found that group of people or that two guys or one guy and one girl, like Lonely Islands or Good Neighbors,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they, and which I think if I would have found that, maybe I would have never done stand up. I would have stick to that, but I didn't find that either. And that's when that led me to stand up and to open mics because I just realized, oh, this is just me. It just depends on me 100%. And I can just, so that's when I started doing open mics and started getting into the stand up circuit, and meeting everybody there.
Okay. And then when you started doing stand up, I mean, you had actually, it was kind of like a fast track for you in a way. You had a lot of early success. You were selected, you were one of the 12 selected out of the CBS, like multicultural diversity competition. And then you also got selected for a lot of comedy festivals. And you even had a documentary made on you that I think I saw. I want to say on CTV. I don't remember if it
Yeah.
was,
That is
but
true.
I
Yeah, yeah.
do remember seeing it and stuff. And like, so how did it feel like having all that early success? And it did it seem as fast as it was going, or was it like kind of like no, this is more like it wasn't what it seemed?
It's funny because it's like, I think with this industry, it's like, even to this day, it's like, you think that thing that you get is the thing that's gonna get you to the level that you want to be, and then you do realize, oh no, this is just one thing. I
Yeah.
just gotta keep doing more stuff. So that's what happened. Every time I would get something, I was like, oh cool, I was like, I'm moving, but then you go like, oh, it was just another step on the journey. So it was great to, the good thing about it is like, getting those things early on is just it gave me more confidence to realize, oh, I am good at this. Because one of the things that I guess opposite of a lot of comedians or something like, is like, I'm very like, I'm like, if I'm not good, just I don't want to keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I was very like, if even I told myself, like when I moved, like, hey, if 2 years into when I started doing this, or 3 years, if I was still doing open mics and not evolving or whatever, then I'm like, I'm done. I'll just try to find something else. But then I could see, I was like, oh, I'm getting this stuff, and then people would tell me, oh, you're good, and this and that. So then I was like, oh, I guess I'm good. I guess I'm good, and then that gave me more confidence to keep going and keep going.
Yeah. Okay. And so how did the documentary come about? Like, because that's always my thing. Like, I saw it and I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
like, oh wait,
I
like,
think
are
that's
they
when
just
people
doing
don't
this?
have, they need to fill out a slot time, and no, I don't know. They're like, look, we need to do something now. I mean, I think it has to do a lot with, maybe with the fact that that I learned that basically English is not my first language, and moving here and kind of like using, basically, because it's very hard to do stand up in a different, I mean, it's very hard to stand up no matter what, and then to do it in a different language and all this stuff. So I think a lot has to do with that angle, of like, and then it's like, it's great because especially early on, anything that you can have to get you, exposure is the best, because
Yeah.
that's, you want, especially in the beginning, you want to just be able to do everything so people get to know you, or see who you are, so yeah, I think that's how it came about in terms of doing, stuff like that.
Yeah, because when the documentary came out, like social media wasn't as big as it is now.
Yeah.
So I already knew. So I know like people were seeing that and thought like, did you even think that you were more famous than that you
No,
really
no, no.
were, or it was like, man, this
I
documentary is a lie?
I never felt, even to this day, I don't think, I mean, famous to me is like, like, gotta be like Jamie Foxx, Leo DiCaprio. I mean, that's, to me, that's famous. I mean, to me, it's like, I don't, even to this day, I mean, famous, I don't, and that's the thing that I always say, like, I don't, to me, famous would be a bonus in this. I just want to be established, a successful, established comic actor in the business. That's it. To me, that's the goal. That's the grand goal of things. But to be famous, I mean, it's not a. It's never been a thing that. I mean, I'll take it, because You
Yeah.
can get in for free in a lot of shit, but
Especially in LA.
in LA, yeah. But yeah, I never, especially in the, and I think it's a very thing to fall. It's a very trap. It's a very easy trap to fall. Especially when you're starting to when you get something and you're like, oh yeah, and then I mean, for me, it was when I got Rio, when I did the animated movie for The Voice in the animated movie Rio.
Yeah, and yeah,
I got
real.
that very early on, like 3 years into doing when I first moved to LA, and then I remember thinking, I'm like, oh my god, it's like this movie is, I'm in this movie with all these big people, this is gonna change, I'm gonna move up, now, and yeah, nothing happened, it like really, it was like, it happened in the way that I got like agents and a manager and the stuff, and it was good, but it didn't change it wasn't like, oh, everybody knew who the hell I was,
Yeah.
so which I thought it was gonna be. And then that was my first big learning lesson of like, oh yeah, no, you can't. You just gotta do stuff and just sit back and move on to the next one. You know.
Yeah, I think that's everybody's learning lesson early in comedy because I think when I first started comedy, like I did think I was bigger. Like I thought I was a lot bigger than I really was, and I wasn't nowhere close. Like I mean, because I've said it in like other episodes before. Like I was like I think in the first like 2 or 3 years of comedy, like I thought I was up there with the big names. I just wasn't discovered yet. And then I ended up doing my own like comedy special that if I looked at it now, I would probably like shoot the shit out of a TV. and
We all have that.
yeah, no,
Everything we did back in the day, we're like, oh
oh
shit.
my god, yeah, I couldn't look at it, but like I think with you, because I also want to know like, okay, so you you quit. I mean, you didn't quit. Like you just knew improv wasn't for you because you couldn't find a core group and stuff. But you knew acting was for you. Like, how did you get back into acting after like the failure with improv?
Yeah, well, I always wanted to do acting, and but then I realized I was like, well, I started late in this game, and I never took any classes. I didn't go to Julia or England or whatever. So I was like, my strategy was like, well, I am good at stand up. I'm funny, or I know I can be. So it's like that's gonna be my way in to get into acting through the stand up. So that's one of the reasons. Besides, I love stand up and I love doing it, but I was like, if I can get really good at stand up, then that's gonna help me jump over, and differentiate myself from every other actors in LA that looks like me. And especially because the more I realized, the more I was like, I'm I'm not the guy that's like, I'm very particular, in the way I sound, my accent. If I could do an American, complete American accent, stuff like that, then I would get more parts. Pretty sure of that, stuff like that. But so I realized it's like, no, I have to get myself known as a stand-up or head people, so then that hopefully can help me becoming, the getting the acting gigs and stuff like that. So that was like the reason.
Okay, okay. And then you actually got selected for a pretty famous show. I don't remember what year it was, but I mean you did pretty well on it. Okay, so NBC's Last Comic Standing. Um,
Yes,
like so you got selected for the show. Do you remember what season it was for?
that was the last season it ever
Okay.
aired. So yeah,
Yeah.
I closed.
Okay.
I closed that baby there.
Oh, no wonder they shut down. Like no wonder they
Yeah.
can't. It's like look at this.
They called
Okay,
me
we gotta.
COVID back then because
Yeah,
they were
yeah,
shut
it
down.
does. So, okay, so you got selected for the show. Was the process still the same? Because I remember the first couple seasons when Last Comic Standing came out, they did the whole, like, basically, we got to stand in line at the comedy store, the Hollywood Improv, and basically, we got to do, like, 2 minutes, and if we pass that 2 minutes part, like, then you move forward. Like, was it still the same process, like, at the very last season, or was it different?
Well, for me, it was different. I don't know if it was the same process, but for me, it was different because my 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 good friend Lachlan Patterson, who he was in the previous season. and he made it to the. I think he made it to the final, and he was like the runner up.
Yeah.
He recommended me to the producers. So then basically they contacted me and they're like, hey, come to the audition at the Hollywood Improv, whatever date it was, I don't remember. So like I didn't. So in terms of like me, so there I kind of jumped into the at least to do the shows. So then I did the show, live at the Improv, and after that I think that's from that then that was it. Like I didn't have to do anything else. So I got lucky in the fact that I got recommended by Lachlan, and they kind of liked me, and also fit the casting of what they wanted, because what I learned later on was reality shows is a show, it's not reality.
Yeah.
So it's casting, and it's all. So that helped me in terms of like getting into the show. But
Okay.
yeah.
And while you were on the show, because I think I talked about this with a lot of comics that have actually been on like TV competition shows and stuff. I mean, it's corporate. It's
Yes.
corporate television. So a lot of your jokes that you probably use in a regular comedy club or something like that, you can't really use on TV. So was it hard for you to adjust, like using jokes that you would probably like open with like at a comedy club, but now these got to be like your headline jokes on TV? Because I mean, I've talked to one guy that was on last Comic Standing. I'm not gonna say his name, but he was just like, if they'd have let me be me, I would have won. And so in your case, was it the same way? Was it hard for you to adjust, or was it simple? It's just like, I mean, I don't do that.
Yeah, for me, I mean, my material has always been. I mean, I never been like a dirty, like I wanna, comic. I do curse when if you come to see me at the club, I'm gonna curse. But I don't need those. I don't need to curse for the jokes to be funny. So like,
Yeah.
for me, it was simple for me to like, okay, I don't have to use the curse words here, and then other things were like, I mean, some were like sexual stuff or a sexual innuendo that I couldn't do. So, but at that point, I had a lot of material that I could choose from. So I was, it wasn't hard for me. It was more, I think the hard thing was to make them tighter, to make them tight, because, like, it was like 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes. And like, you had to be like, so the thing was to get those bits that were longer, to make them tighter, to edit down, and then to cut stuff so it would make sense. So that was to me, that was the hard part of kind of adjusting, because you're not being fully yourself at the end of the day. It's like you have to be, but you're not. So it's acting in a way. You have to be, you have to like play with it and play with the crowd with like, because it's not, it's a paid crowd, that they're there to laugh, but you sometimes they don't give you the laughs, and you gotta keep smiling and keep.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things. That it was a very good experience, because I learned a lot on how to perform, on TV, but it also was like, I learned a lot what the process of reality competitions are, which I was like, I was a little disappointed, because it was like a lot. I mean, I know the game is the business. It's like, it's whoever they want. It's whoever has the big story. Like how they do. Like, it's not just about being funny. It's about, sometimes it's about like, hey, is this person? What happened to you growing up, or did you have this? Like all these other things that they want to sell you on the story, and then that was like the shock of like, oh, okay, it's not just about. It's like, it doesn't. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you could do great, but then it was like, well, it wasn't just for you. So that was my. But I do say that I do love. I was very thankful for doing it, because it did give me exposure at that time, and then it also taught me a lot of things on how to perform on camera, how to be on a show, and how to do all those songs. So I was very thankful to do it. But I realized, like everything, you go into one thing thinking one way, and then you go like, oh wait, this is different. So
Okay. Yeah, no, and then I think one last thing I want to talk to you about the show, and I think a lot of comics really don't talk about this part. Okay, so after the show's over, and I think you like, how long is that process before the show airs, and also what do you do after the show's there? Like after you're off, like what do you think that time span is for you to capitalize on that moment?
Hmm. Well, what was interesting about that season is like that season was actually gonna get canceled, or
Yeah.
like I remember, like I got in the thing, and then they were like, looks like the show's not gonna happen." I was like, well, "Of course, the season that I get in is not gonna happen."
Yeah.
Okay, but then they're like, then they called, then they were like, "Oh yeah, we are gonna do the season, but it's gonna be like only 3 weeks." So like of taping, so like it was like a very like a speed date season, like
Yeah.
Lachlan season. They had like, it was like 2 months spread out over 2 months or 3 months, or it was a very like a long time taping, and you would get a lot of TV exposure. This one was like they jumped from like one, you pass the first round to the second round, and then final, like in 3 weeks basically. It's like, here's the final, here's the top 10, and here's the top 5. So for me, it affected me because and actually people told me this. I remember one guy, I was at the gym, and this guy came up to me. He's like, "Hey man, I really love you, and last time I stand," but it was like, it was so quick. The show was so quick. I never got to see you. I wanted to see more of you, and you were, and I so in terms of that didn't, it didn't bump the social numbers that I thought I could get, and then also it kind of like, afterwards it did, I did get, shows and go, headline clubs and colleges and stuff like that because of that, but it wasn't as big as I, as and also it has to do with the show, ratings and stuff like that, like because like America's Got Talent, for example, has more ratings. So it's like if you're there, you're like see more. This was, you know, it wasn't like the hit of the summer or whatever something. So it's like, less people. But yeah, I think the way to capitalize was just to like, hey, like you have to go right away. That's, you can't wait. I think it's like, because like everything in this career, in this industry, is like, you lose steam if you don't capitalize right away after you've done something. Especially for
Yeah.
like stand up.
Yeah, no, I like to think stand-ups a lot like being in the NFL and like getting cut. So you only
Yeah.
got like you got a 2 week period to find a team, or you're just never gonna get on another
Yeah,
roster
yeah.
or anything like that. So yeah, no, but okay. So after the last comic standing, and you got a top 10 finish, but you felt like basically like if you would have had more time, you probably would have did better. You got accepted into a lot of festivals, and you got to do headline shows and everything. But what was basically what I want to say is what was that like when you kind of realized like, dang, like, okay, I'm losing steam, like, all right, like this ain't, like, I gotta pick up something else, like, because this ain't really
Hmm.
going as fast as it was.
Well, I mean, that's ever since I started doing stand up, but that's pretty much the whole mindset of like, okay, what's next? I gotta move. So
Yeah.
no, it's I mean, it's I think the more I've done, I mean, now like keep learning. It's like the more that you have to focus is in yourself. I mean, like there's so few things that you can control. Everything else is like you can't. So it's like the more I've been learning, and especially, ever since I did those stuff and stuff like that, and I'm like, why am I getting this, or why am I not auditioning for that? It's like at the end of the day, it's like, look, all you gotta control is go back, and that's what I would do. I would go back and get better at my stand up. I would write better. I would perform more. I would do all this stuff. So that's ever since I would, finish something, or something didn't work out as I planned. It's like, well, go back to only things you can control. With your stand up now, doing sketches, putting them online, doing whatever, everything that you can do on your own. And that's been my thing ever since. And it's the only way also to be sane. You
Yeah.
know, you can't just be, because if not, then you can't just wait for something to happen, or wait for somebody to call you. You just got to keep doing stuff and then be ready. So when that person calls you, or you get called or whatever, or then people get to notice because you're doing a lot of stuff. And then every time they see you, it's like, oh, you're funny. Oh, yeah, I saw your stuff online. That's good. Funny.
Yeah. Okay. And then like cuz you and then cuz it also like you I remember like I like when that show like kind of was like going it ended. I did remember I saw you a lot on like late night television like cuz that was like at the time when
Yeah.
like you were basically like just on late night doing stand up and stuff. Okay, so um late night has changed from like when,
Hmm.
I guess when me and you were growing up when like if you were on late night television you were just basically
That was the
superstar.
thing. Yeah.
Like you're a
Hmm.
superstar, and then but now since you've been doing, you're like constantly a regular on late night. Do you feel like the same way? Do you feel like the same way, like as if you did, like if this like happened when you were watching it as a kid? Like, do you feel like late night stand up comedy is still, um, like, is still like a pinnacle for
No, I
comics?
mean, I think now it's more of like a patch, like a one of the scouts patch, like thing
Yeah,
that you get. I don't know what it's
yeah,
called, but for now, because I think it's still, yeah. I mean, if Jimmy Kimmel or Colbert or whatever they call me, like, hey, you want to do it? Yeah, I'll do it. But right now, where we are, it's not gonna do it. It's not gonna change. It's not what it was obviously in the '80s, which was completely like a
yeah,
different, and then even '90s and early 2000s that still did stuff. Now it's like it's another thing, because right now you can actually get viral, more like noticed, just doing a
yeah,
TikTok,
yeah.
just doing anything that you want. So now, like late night TV, it's like again, and I think it's like everything you have to do. You never know what's gonna hit. You know what I mean? You never know. So it's like do it. Like I think people are like, yeah, I would do it, but I would not have any expectation of like, oh, this is gonna change anything. Like I just be like, oh, this is just a way for me to have good tape. That's the only way that I would see it. Oh,
Yeah.
this is a way for I can use to submit to other stuff.
And so this is just another way like I can raise up my price like if I ever like somebody wants
Yeah,
to book
yeah,
me.
just like
So,
it is
yeah.
it is adding to the resume at the end of the day. Like this whole career is like the more stuff you do, the more you can, yeah, raise your price, So it's like, oh, I've been here. And so yeah, so at the end of the day it's adding more stuff to your resume and
Yeah.
more experience too.
So okay, I guess we can talk about the elephant in the room. So COVID. Okay, so last year like COVID
Okay. I was like,
basically.
what somebody farted? What's going on?
Yeah. No, so
How do you know?
COVID. COVID-19 basically like wiped out comedy all last year, and it definitely took away about I want to say more like 85% of basically the comedy industry in general. Okay, like for someone like you that's been on TV and done late night and actually has a pretty strong resume and also has done shows and done actually TV shows and been on movies and stuff. Okay, but like you wouldn't, like you said before, you wouldn't really consider yourself to be like famous. Like how was this whole experience for you with COVID? Like from the start, where it was like, okay, like it might only last like 2 weeks or a month, to like, man, I ain't worked in like 6 months or anything else. Like how like does COVID work for somebody like you with your resume?
Well, yeah, no, it was interesting because yeah, I mean, I think we were all first time we were all in the same boat of like we didn't know what was gonna happen, Yeah, I definitely was more on the side of like I knew that it wasn't gonna end quick, but I also didn't realize, oh yeah, it's gonna be so long, So yeah, for me it was like I think when this whole I think to me what changed because I didn't know when it first started. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do with with money, or work, because I had shows like all line up for for the year, and they basically all got canceled or postponed. So I was like, oh, what am I gonna do? And then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, but then this whole like virtual shows started, popping up, and I was in the beginning, right in the beginning, I was like, oh no, I mean, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't. That's not stand up. But I really like. I was like, no, you have to do it because it is what this is what's happening right now. You have to be and practice it because you have to be good at it, because this might be the future. This might be the way to do stand up for now, So I really got it early into doing virtual shows, and that really helped. And that basically that's what I've been doing, in terms of stand up throughout the whole year. Just been a lot of virtual shows for colleges, for offices, corporates, for other normal shows, and I learned to master it, not master, sorry, but to learn to do it well. Where I still do where yeah, I always say it's like it's not stand up, it's a different thing. But I know now how to do it where people are still gonna enjoy it and have fun. But so that definitely helped me into like kept busy, and then luckily a lot other projects that are not stand up related have come up, and I have been that I've been working on. So that has also really I've been, and also I was like, let me let me just start doing other stuff that I've always been put out. Like I want to, like I've been writing my script. I've been working, in this other stuff. So it's like, so all this other stuff so I've been busy. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I've been busy in terms of like, of being a lot of other stuff that are not stand up related, And what's weird is like, I haven't traveled because I mean, I'm the guy who's like, yeah, I don't want to get sick. Plus, I don't want to. I don't. And also, to me, it's like, it's like, it's not. It wasn't. It's gonna be worth it for me in terms of, because if I'm gonna be in my head, I'm not gonna be able to have a good show for people if I'm thinking of like, oh, I'm gonna get all this stuff, and then so I've been focusing on this other stuff that's been really helpful because it's opened other doors to not just stand up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so I think like, because I think with COVID, it affected stand-up comics, but like comedic writers, I noticed like they were still working, and actually like
Yeah.
the free time in the beginning, the free time was really good for them because then they were writing like crazy. But then I noticed some of my friends, when it came to writing, you kind of go stir crazy because it's just like it's the same thing almost every day. So like, did it ever
Yeah.
get to a point where you just got tired of writing?
Yeah, well, I realized like I'm a stand-up that needs to go up to write. You know what I mean? Like because I need to try what's work. It's I like to whenever I go up and have new material, I like sometimes I do just the setups or just the beginnings just to test to see if people are into it, and then I go and then I'm like, okay, I can develop this more. But for me, writing it's been hard because I mean, I want to write a lot, but sometimes I'm like, I need to try this. Like, I'm writing so much, and then I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I could write like 5 minute, a 10-minute bit, and then it doesn't even work. So it's like,
Yeah.
so that's been the hard part. But luckily, with these virtual shows, and then shows that have popped up around LA, like parking shows and parking lot shows and shows in parks and whatever drive-in shows, that
Yeah.
has also helped me to be like, okay, I'm writing. Like I have a show next week, so I'm just gonna write, work out this new material or this new bit, Which is funny because talking about what we're talking about, open mics and stuff like that, I feel like now I'm back in those
Yeah.
where like,
Yeah, yeah.
all right, now I have one show a month,
Yeah.
and like I used to go, and I was like before like COVID, like literally I would go up every day, sometimes three
Yeah.
times a night, So it's like
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
weird, but
Yeah. Yeah,
but I
definitely.
the good thing about it that I said to people is like, luckily because I've done comedy for a while. Before I remember when I started like the first couple of years, like if I didn't do comedy for like a week, I'd be like, oh my god, this is weird. I need to go up. I gonna suck. But
Yeah.
now that I like, I mean, it's like now it's like I know how to do it. Yeah, I might be rusty a little bit when I go up, and but I know I'm not gonna fuck it up. I'm not gonna. So it's like it's funny. Like that's which also has led me to be like more calm or more not so in my head about not about just having a show like once a month or twice a month.
Yeah, no. And then was your mom? Because like I remember we were talking before we came on. Like your mom is like still like she still thinks you should be doing something else other than stand up.
Yeah.
Like with
Well,
COVID happening, did she definitely was like, okay, you need to go do something
no,
else?
no, no. I think I mean, like a couple of years. I mean, I think it's been like. I think when I first when I started just making money just off comedy and acting, that's when she kind of like. Now she's more like pressuring into like. So when are you gonna be in a sitcom? So when are you gonna do this? You know. So it's more about now. It's like
Oh
before it
man.
was like, and now she's like, all right, come on, get it. You know, like come on.
She just thinks it's that easy for you. Like you just
Yeah, yeah.
can't you
Like, why don't
call
you call?
somebody?
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you knock on Sofia Vergara's door? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I would
man.
do it, but I would get arrested. You know.
You
So
know her, right? Like
yeah,
she's like
yeah,
one of your best friends. You live like next door, right?
yeah.
That's
That's so,
funny.
and that's the thing too. Is like, what's funny is like even people don't understand. Is like even if I was like a friend of those people, like it's so even if they have a show, like it's so hard to them put me in their show because it's like 10 other people that have to say yes.
Yeah.
The studio and the network and all these other people. So it's like even if they wanted to, it's still hard, so
Yeah. Yeah, that's nobody ever understands that part. They just think like, well, you've been on TV twice,
yes.
so you should have already won an Emmy, I mean, an Oscar,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
gone on
yeah,
to do other things, man.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Or it's like,
but
but this person's so young. I was like, yeah, because they started when they were 5. I
yeah.
mean, like, yeah,
I
of
just
course.
seen the Ricky Martin guy. He has 5 parts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. He started in Menudo. That's
yeah,
his
yeah,
whole
yeah.
life
So
has
yeah.
been. I went from like after college.
Yeah, yeah, no. So, I mean, so let's talk a little bit about you as a comedic writer. You've had like quite a bit of success as a comedic writer. You actually have two projects on HBO Max right now. I actually got to take a look at both of them. One is with you got to work with Lorne Michaels from SNL, like kind of a dream come true for you. So tell me a little bit about Mass Mahor and like how that came out and like what basically how you ended up in that spot.
Yeah, no, that was a cool thing because so Master Horror was a thing that from Broadway Video, which is yeah, like you said, Lauren Michaels, and it's basically they started it to cater to not cater but to incubate Latino talent, So they got a lot of bunch of comics, stand-ups and writers and stuff like that to kind of like be on their roster, and it was cool because the good thing is like I met them like, and their thing was like, hey, you pitch us ideas, and then we'll give you a budget so you can do those ideas. And it was so cool because yeah, I got to start working with them right away, and I pitched them, a lot of things that I got to produce on my own and write on my own and do everything. And it taught me a lot on how to do all that of like directing and producing and hiring people and doing all the other stuff that you don't see. So that was really cool because, and also the cool thing is like they allow you to just like, they would give you notes, which was also very cool too, because it's kind of like a learning experience on how to deal with a network, for
Yeah.
example, in a very micro level. But it is what happens. It was like I would send the idea and they were like, okay, cool, I like that, but what about this? How about you change that? How about you do that? And then I would to go back and write and all right, but how about this? Okay, what about this? What about, and then finally got to the point where it's like, all right, cool, let's shoot it. You know, so that was really cool because it got to, I mean, and I got to put all the stuff online as well that people can see, and I got to work with a lot of people, a lot of my good friends as well. So that was fun, and with zoo animals, that was a thing that was a short. It's a short that I co-wrote with my writing partner. It started just us like, hey, we wanted to work together, and we had a lot of ideas, and finally we just came up with this one, and we just like, hey, my idea was like, hey, I want to make a short that is not a sketch because I've been doing we were because my
Yeah.
writing partner helped me a lot he helped me produce a lot of my sketches, so we already had that experience. But we were like, I don't want to do another thing that looks like a sketch. I want to do like an actual film, something that looks like a scene in a long movie, and then and that's one of the ideas of Zoo Animals came about, and we wrote it, and then we put the money, me and him, and we got a bunch of obviously favors like as you do, and we shot it and we edited and we started putting them on festivals, which it did
Yeah.
good. It got into Nelip Festival. It got into JFL festival in Vancouver as well. It got into like several festivals, and we were happy. We were like, wow, this is great. I mean, the fact that it got to HBO Max, that was like
Yeah.
that came out of nowhere because that was
Well,
like
how long? How long was it for? How long did you? How long had you been? How long had you been done shooting and producing that until it got to HBO Max?
yeah. So we did that. I think it was 2018 that we did it, and that we finished it, and then we started festivals in 2018, 2019. And in one of those festivals, that's where my writing partner and my sister, who also helped produced it, and the short, they went to a festival in New York. I think it was New York Film Festival or something like that. And that's how they met somebody there that they told us like, hey, HBO is looking for shorts. Why don't you contact them or ask or talk to this person? And that's how it all started. So we got my manager to involve, and then he helped us contact the people, and it took like 6-7 months. It was like of like you don't hear from them, and you're like, well, I guess it's
Yeah.
done, whatever. And it and then finally it's like, okay, it's gonna happen, and I was like, wow. And then my mind was like, well, I guess not, most people are not gonna see it because it's gonna be on HBO, and they're probably gonna put it like at 2 in the morning or something like that. But then that's where then the big surprise was HBO Max came, the whole streaming service, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that changes the game because now that's there. Like now it's
Yeah.
like you can just go and click on it, and it's awesome because the fact that to have that little that little idea, and now it's that we sold it, we licensed it to HBO Max. That was a very big like cool thing that happened, which it was never expected.
Yeah, now nobody can lie to you when they say like, "Ah, man, I missed it." You gotta tell me the time.
I
No,
know,
it's
it's
on
like
there
right
all the
there. Yeah,
time
yeah, yeah,
now.
yeah.
It's on there
That's
all the time. That's the
that's
way digital streaming works. Like, you can watch it
yeah.
whenever. Okay, you're like,
And
how
I
about
tell
you come
people,
over and watch it
yeah,
right now?
I tell people it's like, look, it's 7 minutes. Like you could be in the bathroom and watch
Yeah.
it. It's like just watch it. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter where you watch it. Just
You say
watch
you got a phone? You got a phone
it.
and $13?
Yeah, yeah,
Let me help you out here. Let me help you out. Cause
yeah.
like also around that time when you were doing the short films and everything and doing the festivals, you also put out a comedy album that actually did pretty well. It was like in the top 5 Billboard, right?
Yeah, yeah. It
But
got good in the beginning right away. It was so much fun because it got into Sirius XM too. Like I remember when it first came out, it got into like the laughs channel on Sirius
yeah,
XM, and it got into like the favorite of the month or something like that. So it gave a lot of play, and
yeah,
that was really cool too because that was my first thing that I put out material wise. I've
yeah,
never, besides stuff that you see online or whatever, or like Last Comic Stand,
yeah,
but that full thing, the word material, that was my first thing, and that was one of the reasons I did it. I was like, look, I think this material is finally like kind of done. I'm like, let's just put it out there, and but it's done really great. I mean, I got in a lot of fans from people listening on Sirius XM. They always message me, DM me like, oh, I just heard you. I was in Tennessee and I was just heard you driving and all this stuff,
okay,
and
cool,
it's been really, really cool in terms of like, and just to have something there, you know what I mean, just to have
yeah,
something like then people, even if even just as of material, just to copyright your material is a good way
yeah.
to be like, all right, I did that joke, if somebody else does it,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I did that already. So
Yeah, no. So I remember earlier I told you that like I did a comedy DVD,
yeah,
like a comedy special,
yeah.
and it was trash. I can't even watch it anymore. Okay, even though it's made it on top 5 Billboard and everything, can you go back and listen to it today?
You know what? It's very hard for me to just even listen to me just now. You know what I mean? Like I always tape myself, but I rarely I hear the whole set. I just go to the thing that I'm.
I'm my own I'm my own worst critic.
Yeah, yeah. I just go back to be like, okay, what did I say here? Oh, that was funny. Okay, cool. So, but yeah, no, I do. I mean, I do listen to it. I mean, the thing about it is like I did do that album. Like I think 7 or 8 years into me doing comedy. So I was already, it wasn't like I didn't know what I was doing. So and I remember doing it. And I felt good doing it. So and I remember so. I don't, it's not a thing that I'm like, to me, it's hard to listen more because of like just old jokes, you know what I mean? Like just jokes that you're like, I don't do that anymore. Where people say like, why didn't you do this one? I'm like, I don't do that anymore. So
Yeah.
that's why it's hard for me to listen. But in terms of like how it came out and the quality, I was happy with it.
Okay, and so now, like, since the pandemic has happened, one of the things that's actually been like a blessing in disguise has been, like we talked about, digital streaming and stuff. And another show that you're on, actually, that I've watched and actually I'm a huge fan of, which is weird because I'm not Latino, is Gentefied. Gentefied on Netflix. I remember when it first came out, like, I didn't see any trailers or anything like that about it. I just kind of watched the show. And I like, and I think to me it's very similar to like if like this stuff happened in a black like neighborhood or something like that. It's just the same thing. So like with everything going on right now, with all the political stuff and all the racial issues that we've had in the past year. So do you think like a show like that is perfect for our time right now? And stuff, or do you think we won't appreciate a show like this until years later?
No, no, no. I think both. I think right now it's great to have it just to because it's like you just have to show. It's about showing you know reality of what's going on in especially in the U.S. If you want to say like there's a big Latino culture in the U.S. and Latinos that were born in the U.S. Which is kind of like a lot of what the show is concentrated on and it's good to give that side of it the people that they don't even they don't understand they never seen. So I think it's a great way to educate people in a funny way about and then like you said a lot of people then the great thing is like people see it and then they're like, oh, I done that or I dealt with that
Yeah.
which is very similar in a way to how I do my stand up, how I base my stand up. All my stand up, I always talk about myself and my life and what's going on, but I always try to make it so people understand my point of view in a way they go like, "Oh, I never thought about that. That's right. That's cool that you thought about." So I think it's a great way. I mean, and it's a cool thing that it happened because, like you said, it's gonna hopefully years later people see it as like, "Oh, this was one of the first shows that basically had like a full Latin, cast or one of the first few ones, and young people in it, and then and the fact that I really love the guys who created the show, which Marvin Lemus and Linda Yvette Chavez, because they're so nice, they're so humble, and they just started just by work, like just like me and like you, just like they did it they just started writing, they just did it, and they sold it to me. It's like so
Yeah.
it's such a cool thing to be like to see that and be like, oh, it can happen. If you put the work and the effort, it can happen. And so it's like it's a very inspiring, to be in that show. Especially is the fact that it's with people that are like that are cool and good
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Do you think they could write a spinoff for your character? Call it the line.
Hey man, I'm just
Call it
hoping.
the line and, and go from there.
I'm
Like
just
just
hoping they.
the
I'm just hoping they add me. They put me in the second season. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
you never
Yeah.
like like I learned through all this industry. Nothing is for sure.
Yeah.
Because like again, both of them could be like, we want Francisco, but then Netflix or the other studio could be like, nah, we don't want this character or whatever. So it's like
Yeah.
if I get in the second season, I'd be even if it's one episode, I'd be very very happy. It was just cool the fact that that was my first kind of like role where I had like a where it's a character. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the roles that I've had has been like one-offs and kind of like very one-dimensional. This one I was like, oh cool, like I created this character and they made it. They let me be, create my own character because what was funny is like that character was supposed to be Guatemalan or Honduran or something.
Yeah.
I forget what it was. But so I remember in the first day of when I was on set, I told the director, the guy who created, I was like, "Hey, so how do you want this accent? Because I mean, I've been working on it." And he's like, "Oh no, just talk like you." And I was like, "Oh really?" Because I talk with a
Yeah.
Venezuelan accent, which is very
Yeah.
different, you know. And then I was like, "Really? I can talk like me?" I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh," and that made it so much easier because easier in ways because a lot of it is Spanish, but also just to be myself and to bring
Yeah.
my personality on the character, which when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, cool! It came good." It wasn't fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, it
so
was
it's
really
definitely
cool.
so it worked out. I mean, it was definitely better because you got to be yourself. So it's like the first time you
Yeah.
actually like. It didn't even really feel like you were acting. It just felt like you were just like normal life.
Yeah, no, it was they gave me a lot of freedom to even I threw even a joke when I said like I'm LA but I'm not I'm from Venezuela but I'm in LA, I'm Mexican. That's a joke that I would do all the time, and
Yeah.
I added that ad lib it on the show. So like they allowed me to do all this stuff and it was fun. And what's funny, I always tell people is like this is why in this industry you gotta be cool and be good with everybody because I got that part because the two creators I work with Linda. I worked with her in a show that one of the first web shows that I did when I first moved to LA, and she worked in that show, so she knew me from that show. And then Marvin, he saw me doing stand up a year ago in another show, so they both kind of like, oh, okay, they knew, I'm in a way that's how I got that part. So it's one of those things that
Yeah.
you gotta be cool with everybody. Always do your job good
Yeah.
because you never know.
You never know. You
You
just
never know, man.
never know. No.
Yeah.
When it comes to okay, because like you're very opinionated on social media as far as like when it comes to political views, and then also you write, and you're like one of a very few Latin writers and stuff. Do you ever feel like pressure to write, but like you feel like you have to like you get stuck on things because it feels like it has to be good because you're not just like writing for yourself, you're writing for other people like that are coming up that are Latin like you like trying to get in this industry, but like if you fail here you feel like you're letting other people down. Like do you feel that pressure ever to when you're writing?
I mean, yeah, with writing, I mean, it's like, yeah, I feel like I always have to like, yeah, at the end of the day, like I'm always introducing myself and my culture, I guess, to people that don't know. So I always do have that pressure of like, I can't just, be a fool or make myself be a fool, in front of people that don't know me, So I do have that pressure of kind of like bring in a good element to the writing where it's not like I don't like that's one thing I like to elevate the writing. I like to make people go like, oh, because one thing that's like kind of my pet peeve has always been the whole thing about like how Latinos have been always portrayed, or like, and even within the Latino culture, like not even like in Mexico or whatever, like they always like they do the 80s tacky comedy, of like the girl with big boobs for no reason. I'm like, what is this? Like, it has nothing to do with the show, with the joke. What is she there? And like they laugh or like,
She's a prop.
so like, yeah, it's a complete. So like, I'm always everything that I put out. It could be a tweet, it could be a sketch, or even or something bigger. I like to make something. Again going to be a big fan of Seinfeld or I just want to do a show that anybody can relate. Anybody can be funny too. And if you're
Mm.
Latino, you're gonna find it a little funnier because there's gonna be inside jokes or stuff that you notice, or But at the end of the day, I wanted to be portray Latinos as just as like everybody else. They don't have to be. It's like a Latino doesn't have to work in this type of environment. Why can a Latino can just be this, and why can just this person just have to be a person? Doesn't matter if they're Latino or not. So that's kind of like the things that I always try to when I'm writing to always keep in mind.
And then, like as you know, everything that happened basically yesterday with the Republicans or the Trump supporters basically storming the White House and stuff. When you were watching that, I knew you were pretty opinionated about that. When you were watching that, did it help you comedically, or did it help you or did it just sit there and you'd be like, man, like really they let them get away with this? Like if this was a bunch of Latinos, we'd have never got away with this. So,
Yeah. Well, it's both. It's like, well, at the end of the day, first and foremost, I was a comic, and I'm always gonna try to find the joke. But yeah, one of the tweets that I put out yesterday was like, a lot of third world immigrants are having PTSD right now because
yeah.
because that's what happens in Venezuela and every land, like that. Like people going into the, like into the government, like, and that's a thing that I never thought would happen here in the U.S. Because in the U.S. everybody respects, the institutions and all this stuff, and like watching that, I was like, wow, it does kind of suck seeing that, to be
Yeah.
like, wow. But it is true, like, I mean, the reality, it is true. It's like you see how see how it was Latinos or sorry, it was Latinos or black people or or Muslims or whatever, it would have been totally different, the way that if they would have been stormed the Capitol, So
Yeah.
so it
Definitely.
does it does show you the I mean, it's like right there. The thing is, like, people want to see it and accept it. It's like the like the proof is put in basically what it is. So it's like, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's sad that it happened, but I hopefully it's a good wake up call for the whole country to realize, hey man, you can't get divided. I mean, because it's like very annoying when it's like that's one thing that I realized when I moved to the U.S., where like I never knew what Democrats were growing up. I never had that Democrat. I even knew who was a Democrat, Republican. I never knew, never knew who were the senators. Never knew all this stuff. And now it's kind of like, oh, like you can't, if you're this person, you can't talk to this person, and it's like, it kind of sucks to be in that, even not making fun of with comedy, like not even you could even make fun of Trump because then people would right away would get pissed, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you haven't even listened to the joke, it's like, is so that whole stuff, I think it's not good for any culture, US or whatever,
Yeah.
where people, where you can just be able to have fun with, especially with political figures, like that's the whole point. Don't get, to me, it's like when it becomes, you can treat political figures like to me like a football team, or like a sports team, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can be fan of the Giants, even if they suck, or the Jets, and still be fan of them, and that's fine. But you can be fan of somebody if they suck, like they're not, like, then you be like, that's not. You have to judge people like, oh, they're good at this, they're good at that, they're good at this, and they're good at that, and it's fine. And to have be able to have different opinions, not just one thing. It's like, I'm this team, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, do you think we'll see change like immediately? Because I mean, Biden gets pretty much
Yeah.
inaugurated in next week. So, do you think we'll see immediate change, or do you think we'll still like be another 3 years before like
I mean,
we see anything else?
it's kind of. I mean, the thing about, I mean, and I talk about just from experience of just not growing up in Venezuela, but having family in the Venezuela and seeing the whole Venezuelan country changed because of Hugo Chavez, which was the basically president dictator guy that started like this, very populist. It kind of like I always tell people like Trump did exactly what Chavez did. In terms of dividing people. You know, and and the thing is like once you plant that seed, man, it's like a virus, man. It's like it's hard to. So that's the thing. It's like yeah, Trump. I mean, Biden's gonna take over, but this whole I mean, the reality is that 76 million people voted for him. So
Yeah.
that's half of the country. So it's like,
Yeah.
I think the key would be to hopefully Biden and his administration, like, you gotta also understand the people that voted for him and why they voted for him. Because I mean, I feel like you can't judge people because they voted for him. It's like you just have to understand why they voted for him and be like, look, let's let's get in the middle. Let's talk. But so I think yeah, hopefully that. But yeah, there's not gonna be immediate change for sure. I think and especially with Trump knowing who he is, he's not gonna stop. I mean, as soon as he's done, I mean, Biden starts, he's gonna start ramping up and I mean building
Yeah.
either even a political his own political party, his own news channel. He's
Yeah.
gonna be doing all that, and then a lot of people are gonna follow him.
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be a lot like if you were at a corporate job and basically like they got bought out by somebody and a new manager comes in, like but you still have all the old employees that
Yes.
love the other
Uh
the
huh.
other manager some way,
Yeah.
like some hated them but then others loved them and
Yeah.
stuff. Like you gotta weed out those, like so that might take a few years. And
Exactly.
like and I feel like as comedians though, like I feel like we're just gonna get solid material. Like I feel like when comedy clubs open back up, that's all we're gonna
Oh
talk
yeah.
about is stuff that they did, which is gonna hurt comedy in a way because I feel like it's gonna oversaturate the market. And now, we're just gonna be like, because now political comedy is like kind of the thing. Now it's like
Well, it's
it's
the
the
thing. It's
only
like
thing. So
that's the thing, and that's why I tell people like that's a very bad sign of a country when all you can talk about politics. Because
yeah,
like like I was saying back before, when I was growing up, I never knew what politics was about because like like there wasn't as bad as is going on right now. But once, but in Venezuela, for example, everything that the comics would do was about talking about government because it literally it messes you with your life every day. And yeah, and like you, hopefully, and hopefully, I think hopefully people with Biden and all this stuff, they find some normalcy where you don't have to you don't have to check what Biden tweeted or all this, like hopefully you can forget about the government and you can just start
yeah,
talking about everything else, and hopefully that's the change that happens, and then people go back like, oh, this is much better than just arguing about politics all the time, you know.
yeah, exactly. So, all right, we're gonna end up closing this out a little bit, but I do have some like last questions I want to ask you. What is your first like your funniest encounter with a celebrity?
Let's see. Well, I did. Man, yeah, I'm trying to find one that's funny. Let's see. Well, when I did Rio, I remember I was at the premiere, and Jermaine Clement, he was in the movie, and he's the evil parrot, and the movie like I my character is like his sidekick, but obviously when you do voiceovers, you never meet
Yeah,
uh, the person. So I remember in the premiere, I was like, it was Jamie Foxx and there was Jesse Eisenberg, but I didn't have any scenes with them. So I was like, he's the only one. So I kind of like went to him while at the craft tables, and I'm like, hey, I'm Francisco Ramos, and I play the monkey in the movie, and he's like, and he's like having like carrots, and he's like, "Oh, okay, cool, nice to meet you." I was like, "Yeah, nice to meet you too." I was like, "Okay, cool," and then just like went away my place. But I was like, well, I was like, that was the only thing I did see what what's his name, Harrison Ford at the in in a what's it called in an elevator, and I was like that was like took me by surprise because I was like that's because he was so surprised that he was there, and that caught me a little off guard. So I was like,
Like he was there by
because
himself.
I mean, no, not like just waiting. Like, no, he came. I think it was like I think I was going to the doctor or something. So he came in, and then he was like, and I was like, oh, and I wanted to say something, but like all his big characters started like popping in my head, like oh, Han Solo, Indiana Jones, The Fugitive, and I was like, ugh. And then he left, and I was like, ah, fuck, I should have said something.
Yeah, no, it's always like when you come to when you come to a celebrity like somebody like Harrison Ford or something, like, do I say something? Well, I shouldn't say something because then I don't want to seem like an obsessed fan.
Yeah.
But like, when am I ever gonna see Harrison Ford again? Like, I'm just, and he's already gone. Like,
I know.
never mind. Okay,
Yeah.
but so where is the weirdest place you ever performed stand-up comedy?
Wow, I've done a lot of weird shows. I did one show outside in a basketball court during the day, while literally like when kids were playing like in front of me while I was
He
performing.
said the game was going on. The
Yeah,
game was going
yeah,
on.
yeah. I was a
You were in
referee,
the middle of the game.
yeah.
You were in the
And I
middle of
was
the
wearing my
game.
boxers.
Oh, okay,
Nah.
makes sense. Mine's was a laundromat.
Oh, yeah, oh,
So,
yeah,
yeah, like
yeah. No,
while like people weren't there for comedy, they was there to do their laundry. And this was like in the beginning. This was like early in the beginning when I first started doing stand up. When I was like determined to go anywhere, like, and I
yeah,
would read like this website. And it's like, oh, good show. I would believe everything like that, like little bio said, like,
yeah.
pack night all the time, definitely people there. It's a laundromat, but like we treat it like a whatever, and it was straight up like a laundromat. It was the worst thing ever. I can't believe I
Yeah.
drove 2 hours to do this.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
crazy. It was
I've done some shows like that. That's been like, why did I drive for this?
yeah,
You know,
it
it's like, come
definitely
on.
makes you
But
second guess
when
it.
you start, you gotta do everything, right? Yeah,
Yeah, no, you just never know, and then you're so excited just to perform in front of people that like it just goes like that.
yeah. Even like doing when I do those colleges, it remind me of like I remember I had to do one where like they were like because colleges they never know how to put a show. They always think
Yeah,
like the stand up like oh you can just perform there and they're like and I was like no you gotta have a stage and you gotta have a mic and
yeah,
you gotta be you
yeah.
know. I remember doing one where it was like in front of like literally in their Starbucks. So I was like, they had a stage there, and like, and the thing is like, hey, so in order to get people to come see you, we're giving away free coffees, and I was like, oh no, that's not a good idea. So obviously, there's a huge line of people just trying to get their frappuccinos, and I'm performing for one person, and they're going
Yeah.
like, so like every time the punchline would be like, so, I was like, okay, everything. I was like. It was like this
Yeah, I'm
is not
sorry.
good at
I'm
all.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um, if you could change one thing about comedy, what would it be?
About my comedy or comedy in general?
Just in comedy in general.
I would have maybe like have like in acting how they have a union like SAG after maybe have like that like so where because I think that would it would do two things. It would you know uh, not make people think that anybody can do comedy because that's a very big thing. Like everybody's like, nobody thinks it's like, oh, I can just be a doctor, but everybody thinks they can do comedy, because there's no entrance fee. You know what I mean? You can just go to an open mic. But also, I
Yeah.
think mostly more important, I think it'll help just especially younger, newer comics to get paid, fair because that to me that's the thing that when you start is like you said we had to drive 2 hours and then you get $20 and I'm like and the show is packed and they made a lot of money so I think just that I think that would be cool to see that just a little because I understand like hey I'm gonna pay a lot more money for the stars or for the people that draw. I get it, but if you're starting as a host or a feature I mean, it should be, I think, more level, not the same thing that they were paying back 20 years ago. You know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. The union would get us that $600 for the government. It
I
definitely
know.
would help us
Yeah.
get our stimulus and stuff.
Yes.
If you could choose one comedy club, no matter where it is, a comedy club or a theater, like to just do a perfect show, you can pick three other comics to work with you. Where would the comedy club be, and who would be the three comics?
I would pick the DC Improv because I think is that club is so cool in terms of like it's set up so well for comedy. Low ceilings, it's tight. It's like everybody's there, but it's a lot of people, and you can hear the pop. Uh, and then for three show, I mean, it would. I mean, I guess I would pick. Uh, well, I would pick. One of the comics that I definitely always looked up to growing up uh, was when I first started at the comedy store when I worked there was Sebastian Maniscalco, which I saw him. I saw his rise. And I was so cool to see, especially as a friend. And to me, he's one of the guys I can see, and he's hilarious. Uh, I would pick Leslie Jones. I think she's hilarious. I would remember I mean, just going up after her, and she would make fun of me so much. She's like, "I'm gonna fuck you, Francisco," like literally after, like, and I was like, you can literally do it. I mean, like if you
Yes,
want to,
yes,
you can.
yeah.
I'm not gonna. I can't put a fight.
She's a big woman, like height
Yeah,
wise. Yeah, I think she would totally, she would manhandle you.
yeah, yeah. I know
She
she would do
definitely make a
it.
man out of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
But I think she's
it's like,
hilarious. I always remember seeing. I'm so happy that she's doing great. And
oh yeah, definitely.
and then and Ian Edwards, I think I would pick him too because I feel that he's one of the guys too in the beginning that kind of like helped me. Um, Ian, he helped me like in the beginning to like like learn a little bit of the comedy world, and well, the first guy that the big regulars that would talk to me as well, that wouldn't be like wouldn't just give me the cold shoulder. And then just
Yeah.
gonna add one more, Cristela Alonso, I would pick her too because she helped me a lot as well. Just because she took me on the road a lot of time, like for like when she was preparing for her hour, and she was very very. I mean, the way that she like I learned so much from just being on the road with her, just performing. The way she interacts with her fans is amazing, and I was like, oh, this is and just the way that she treated me. It was always what I love about her is that she brought me on the road as a friend, and as a comic, but it wasn't like I was like never felt like I'm like below her. Like it wasn't like you go over there or you eat this kind. So that was very cool of her, and definitely her too.
Okay. So we're about to end it, but we usually like to end it with this segment that we'd like to call either or. Where basically we're gonna give you some comedy related scenarios, but I need you to pick one of what you would do, like or what you think is better. And these are just your own personal preferences. We're not gonna sit there and judge you or anything like that for any reason and stuff. So I'm just gonna get started and just say a few things. Okay, so Gentefied or zoo animals?
Um, I would, I guess, Gentify if I'm in the second season.
Okay, stand-up comedian or comedic writer?
Now, that's a tough one because I want to do both. Uh, I'll be a comedic writer that writes a show about a stand-up comedian. That's me.
Okay, so comedic writer. Okay, the Comedy Store or DC Improv?
Oh, I gotta go with Comedy Store because that's my home club. That's where I started. That's how I learned to do comedy.
Okay. Headline a show, but have Dave Chappelle go on before you, or be a feature for Carlos Mencia.
Oh no, Chappelle for sure. I mean,
Okay.
I love, yeah, yeah. I
But he's
would.
going on. But
I mean,
Chappelle's going on before you.
Yeah, and that's fine. That happened to me at the comedy store. So I mean, like I remember I had to go up after he went up, and it was there was nobody. They all left, but I still went up.
I still did my time. Like
Yeah,
time is
and plus
time.
and just watching Chappelle. I mean, like that would be like the fact that I'm on the same show with Chappelle and I can watch him. That's like masterclass right there. So for sure, Chappelle.
Okay. Okay, Bomb. During a comedy special watched by millions, or have a great TV pilot only watched by 100 people.
The pilot because that means still. I mean, I still gotta. If it's got watch, I'm still got a chance. You didn't say it get canceled, so I'm still got the season.
He said, like the 100 people, they might be 100 important
Yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. That
so.
was that was just probably the premiere for the studio. So
Okay. Okay, Angela Johnson or Krista Alonso?
Cristela Alonso, just because I think they're both great, but Cristela, we're very good friends, and so yeah.
Okay. And last but not least, Francisco Ramos or George Carlin?
Oh wow. Just me, just because I mean, George Carlin is one of the greats, but there's nobody like me because there's just one Francisco.
That's right. That's right. I always tell everybody, I was like, pick yourself. Like, because no matter
Yeah,
what,
I mean, like at the end of the day,
like,
that's yeah. I mean, I want to get to the career of George Carlin, but he only did that. I gotta do what I do.
yeah, no, that's great. So that's our time, man. Thank you, Francisco, for doing this with us. It's truly an honor. I want to thank him for coming out and spending time with us. Before you go, tell people where they can follow you on social media. Also, and if you have anything coming up that you would like for us to know about, let us know that.
Yeah. No, I social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Francisco Ramos, Instagram at F Ramos Comedy, which is also the TikTok as well. And then yeah, I got a couple of things, some podcasts that will be coming out. Actually, I'm in a podcast right now. Sorry, that is out right now. It's called Standby Podcast with my good friend JJ Whitehead. So check that out. And then I also will be coming out with a couple of podcasts in Spanish later on this year, which I think. So keep that on the lookout, and then hopefully you can see me in on Gentefied, later in the year, when they start taping again. So, but yeah, and then yeah, definitely go watch Zoo Animals. 7 minutes, HBO Max. Come on, you can do it.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. It's only 7 minutes. But thank you, Francisco, for coming out tonight. Thank you, everybody that's watching this right now. Remember, 2021 is just getting started. So if you haven't made New Year's resolutions yet, you don't really have to. Just use them to your everyday life. Just want to wish everybody a great 2021, and always remember to laugh at life because it's actually pretty funny. I'm Tyson Paul. This is We on the Last with Tyson Paul. See you again very soon.